In this tutorial, our task is to create a clean background plate for this shot of a car driving down a road. So we're going to do some auto tracking on it in a bit, and that's going to require having a little mat set up, a garbage mat around the car. Well, we could supervise track it as well, but auto tracking will show a couple of different things and be useful down the road in a second too. So to set up that roto mat, we're actually going to use a little tracker that's sitting on the car in order to animate the roto mat quickly. So I'm just setting up this tracker, and I'll let it go through the shot, and you need to back up a couple frames at the end as the car goes behind the trees. I'll just turn it back off and lock it up. So there's our initial track that carries along with the car. Now we can go over to the roto panel and tell it that we want to create a little mat around the car, and we're going to use this import tracker to control point mode. And to do that, we're just going to select the tracker and then click on the control point. And so that center control point for the spline has been driven onto that tracker throughout the entire length of the shot. Now that's made our whole spline be a little bit off-centered, but we can just correct for that easily enough by dragging those individual control points back to where they ought to go to roughly stay centered up on the car as it goes through the shot. So now we have a nice little mat that goes along with the car, and we're just about ready to auto track. But a key thing that we need to remember to do at this point is to delete that tracker, because if we do the auto tracking now, it's going to use that tracker as part of the basis of deciding how it should generate the tracks, what kind of motion it's looking for. And we don't actually want the motion of the car, we want what's going on in the rest of the shot. So now we're back on the main summary panel. We'll tell it it's a tripod shot and fire up the auto tracker. And now we have an initial track. We'll just do a quick cleanup on that, take out a tracker, it looks like. So we have a good quick and dirty initial track. And now we can start thinking about what this looks like in 3D and generating our background. So here in our top view, you see here's the camera, and it's spinning nicely in place to go along the track. So what let's do, we're actually just going to generate a flat plane to serve as the background here. That's a simple way to do it. It carries over to After Effects, right? As you've seen in some of the other tutorials, you can generate a more complex piece of geometry if you want, but for this, a nice flat plane will be good. So I'm just going to set that up like that. Now I'm going to be creating this plane on the right here on this depending on what you want to call it, on the front plane through the origin, and I just want to keep those points behind it. That'll wind up a little handy later in the perspective view, and also in being able to judge over here where I want my plane to be. So we're going to create the plane, and it's going to extend a little further over the edge, just because the trackers, don't go all the way to the edge over here, because those points don't stay on the image very well. So you can see it looks like I've got the main image here covered pretty well all the way at the beginning of the shot. So let's scrub through to the end, and it looks like I need to go a bit further in that direction. So let's just make our plane a bit wider, and maybe we can shift it over a bit. Even shift it a little far. It's probably a little bit wide at this point. And we can start decreasing the height also to allow some margin for the fact that the shot's bouncing up and down a little bit. But it looks like done okay there. But here there's a little corner that's not covered. So that's not so great. So there we have a satisfactory coverage of the field of view of the camera. We could go over to the perspective view, and this shows you kind of another view. Here you can use these lines from the field of view wedge of the camera as a judge also of whether that field of view is large enough or not. As long as they're actually colliding and ending sort of inside of the plane, that's good. It means it's staying covered. Here's a different view of that, so you can see a little bit differently what's going on. So now I think we can start doing a little texturing here. We'll set up a file, and we'll make this maybe a 4K by 512 or something sort of texture. And we are ready to roll. And here's our first crack at the texture. Let's go and see somewhere. Here's the texture itself. We have a bunch of vertical lines here, and those might seem inexplicable to start with, but if you go back and take a look at the shot itself in the camera view, you can see what's happened. And this is really typical of many shots, especially film scans, where there's a little border right there on the edge of the camera, on the edge of the frame, that's just all black. And that data, is just as good as anything else, and it's the cause of those lines. So the thing to do when you have that situation and see that is to go back and just set up a little garbage mat right along that edge that says, hey, don't use this data, it doesn't mean anything. And that's exactly what we've got here. So I've just set up two little mats right there. And now if we go back, just setting this up so you can see, you can actually look for the car itself, because what's going to happen, I'm going to turn on this block by the garbage spline. So I'm going to be blocking out not only those edges of the image that are causing the black lines throughout the texture, but also there's still the garbage mat that's carrying along with the car. And we want to do that to take out the effect of the car on the image as well. So let's see if we maybe zoom in a little bit on this. Hopefully you'll be able to see that as it happens. So let's start up that, and we'll just go back. We're just going to wait for that to finish in the background and wait for the viewer to update with that changes. And bingo, now you see all of a sudden it cleaned up, and the residual effect of the car is gone as well. So if we want, now we have the clean plate for the entire length of the shot. So to get that out, we could go in the preview window here, in the preview movie feature, and just tell it that we want to create a new little sequence maybe. We'll make a little JPEG sequence. Get some reasonable quality there. And we don't want to see sort of anything but the image itself. And so now we're, it's going and producing that new version of the shot. It doesn't have any of the borders. It doesn't have the car. So that's our clean background sequence. Now some of you might well ask, well, what about the car? Can you give me the car too? Well, the answer to that, you'll have to wait and see in the next tutorial. Thanks.